Imagine losing everything, your wealth, your pride, even your children's food. Would you bow your head and beg? Or would you choose dignity, even if it meant hunger? Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "Not to have a thing is less humiliating than to beg it." This powerful story of Harith, the man who refused to beg, will shake your heart and remind you, Rizq comes only from Allah. Never trade your dignity for the world's pity. Watch the full story now, only on Deen in Minute. He refused to beg, and Allah opened doors. Hazrat Ali's wisdom. The sun was sinking into the horizon of Kufa, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and gold. A hot wind swept through the dusty streets, carrying with it the cries of merchants closing their stalls and the faint sound of a mother calling her children home. Amidst this ordinary end to the day, a story of pride, dignity, and divine wisdom was quietly unfolding, one that would be remembered for generations. There lived in that city a man named Harith. Once, he had been known as a wealthy cloth merchant, respected for his fine silks and his generosity to neighbors. His shop had been one of the busiest in the marketplace, and his name was spoken with honor. But as fate would have it, a fire broke out one night, devouring his entire storehouse. In a single evening, years of hard work turned to ashes. The flames didn't just consume fabric, they consumed his livelihood, his wealth, and his sense of security. At first, Harith tried to rebuild. He borrowed small amounts, invested carefully, and prayed for Allah's mercy. But with every step forward, another calamity seemed to push him back. A shipment went missing, a dishonest partner betrayed him, and soon he found himself in debt. The man who once employed apprentices now walked alone, his robe torn at the edges, his sandals worn thin. But what pained him most wasn't the hunger in his belly or the weight of debt pressing on his shoulders. It was the looks, the pitying looks from those who had once sought his help, the whispers of neighbors, "Poor Harith, how the mighty have fallen." His pride, his dignity, the very core of who he was, seemed to be slipping from his grasp. One night, as he sat in the dim glow of a flickering oil lamp, his wife, Layla, placed a bowl of watered-down soup before him. Their children sat cross-legged, eyes wide with hunger, waiting for him to say Bismillah so they could eat. Harith looked at them, his wife's tired face, the children's fragile bodies, and felt a storm brewing inside his chest. He clenched his fists and muttered under his breath, "Tomorrow I will go to him. I will ask for help." Layla raised her eyes, startled. "To whom will you go, Harith?" He swallowed hard. The name burned his tongue. "To Malik ibn Quraysh. He is rich. He lends money freely." "Perhaps." Her eyes filled with alarm. "No, Harith. Please, do not lower yourself before him. Have you forgotten his arrogance? He gives only to those who will bow to him, to those who will carry his name like a collar around their necks. You are not a beggar, my husband. Allah is our Rizq, the provider. Hold on to patience." But Harith was too broken. "Patience doesn't fill stomachs, Layla," he snapped, then immediately regretted it as her eyes welled with tears. He softened, placing his hand over hers. "Forgive me, but what choice do I have? My children," his voice cracked. That night, he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, hearing in his mind the mocking laughter of Malik, the whispers of the townsfolk, the gnawing hunger of his children. At last, before dawn, he rose, wrapped his worn cloak tightly around himself, and set off toward Malik's grand house. The streets were quiet, lit only by the pale light of the moon. Each step felt heavier than the last. His heart pounded with shame. He imagined himself knocking on Malik's door, lowering his head, stretching out his hand like a beggar. His stomach twisted. He almost turned back, but then he thought of his children's hollow eyes and forced himself to walk on. As he neared the square, he noticed a group of people gathered under a lantern outside the mosque. A man was speaking, his voice calm, yet commanding, carrying into the stillness of the night. Drawn by curiosity, Harith stopped. It was none other than aliibnabitalib, may Allah be pleased with him, the commander of the faithful, known for his wisdom and justice. People sat around him, listening intently as he shared words that seemed to pierce the soul. Harith lingered at the edge of the crowd, trying to remain unseen. But then he heard it, words that struck him like lightning. Not to have a thing is less humiliating than to beg it. Dignity is a garment no poverty can tear, while begging is a chain heavier than iron. The world around Harith seemed to vanish. Those words echoed in his mind, over and over, drowning out everything else. His knees weakened, and he nearly stumbled. It was as if Imam Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, had spoken directly to his heart, exposing the storm within him. Tears welled in his eyes. He looked down at his hands, trembling. He had been on his way to shackle himself with humiliation, to trade his dignity for scraps. But now, the weight of those words pressed on him harder than hunger ever had. He turned away from the mosque, his feet moving without thought. His cloak fluttered behind him as he walked back through the quiet streets, no longer toward Malik's mansion, but back toward his home. When he entered, Layla rose in surprise. "Harith, you went, and came back so quickly." He sat heavily on the floor, burying his face in his hands. "I heard him, Layla. Imam Ali, may Allah be pleased with him." He said it. He said it with his own tongue. Not to have a thing is less humiliating than to beg it. Layla's eyes softened, tears slipping down her cheeks. She sat beside him, holding his hand. "Alhamdulillah, Harith. You chose dignity." The days that followed were not easy. Hunger still gnawed at them, and debt still loomed. But Harith refused to beg. Instead, he found small tasks, carrying water, mending nets, tending field for a few coins. It was humiliating in the eyes of some, but he held his head high, remembering the words of Ali, may Allah be pleased with him. He worked with his own hands, and though the earnings were meager, they were pure. Then came the day when a traveler from Basra stopped at the market, seeking a man to guide his caravan through the desert. Harith, strong and trustworthy despite his poverty, was recommended. The journey was long and dangerous, but Harith accepted. He set off with the caravan, enduring scorching days and freezing nights. He protected the goods, treated the camels with care, and guided the travelers safely to their destination. When the caravan reached Basra, the merchant handed him a pouch heavy with silver coins. Harith's eyes widened, his hands trembling. This was more wealth than he had seen in years. He bowed his head in gratitude, whispering, "Alhamdulillah." When he returned to Kufa, his children rushed to him, their faces glowing with joy. Layla embraced him with tears of relief. Slowly, piece by piece, Harith rebuilt his life. He repaid his debts, reopened his shop, and once again became known in the marketplace. Not as a man who begged, but as a man who endured with dignity and rose again. And whenever people asked him how he survived such hardship, he would smile and say, "Because aliibnabitalib, may Allah be pleased with him, taught me that dignity is richer than gold, and begging poorer than dust." Years later, when his beard had turned white and his children were grown, Harith would often gather them around and tell them the story. He would describe the night he almost lost his dignity, the night Imam Ali's "may Allah be pleased with him" words saved him. And with trembling hands, he would raise his eyes to the sky and say, "Never beg from men, my children. Beg only from Allah. For when you stretch your hands to him, you rise. But when you stretch your hands to men, you fall." The story of Harith spread through Kufa, inspiring countless others to hold on to patience, to choose dignity over humiliation, and to trust in Allah's provision. And though Harith's wealth came and went, his honor remained untouched, a legacy stronger than any fortune. For indeed, as Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, said, "Not to have a thing is less humiliating than to beg it." Brothers and sisters, imagine this. You lose your wealth, your food, your pride, and you're about to beg at the door of a rich man. But then you hear the words of Hazrat Ali, may Allah be pleased with him. Not to have a thing is less humiliating than to beg it. This is the story of Harith, a man who chose dignity over humiliation, who refused to bow before men, and Allah opened for him doors of Rizq he never imagined. If you've ever felt broken, poor, or desperate, remember, your provision comes from Allah, not from the hands of people. Watch the full emotional story now on Deen in Minute, and let Hazrat Ali's timeless wisdom change the way you see life.